What's going on, fight fans? Ted Awuga, and wanted to talk about the events that happened last night during the Chad Dawson Bernard Hopkins pay-per-view. First of all, I got to say that the undercards probably as far as boxing goes, it was the best undercard show setup I've ever seen in my life. The undercard was just one great fight after another. Paulie Malignaggi versus damn it, I forgot the dude's name. Anyway, Paulie Malignaggi versus some dude that was basically a punching bag. Paulie Malignaggi almost gets knocked out in the first round, but after that it was pretty much a shutout. Paulie Malignaggi boxing speed, hand speed, the other dude couldn't hang with it. So Malignaggi wins that one. Either way, it was a good fight, very entertaining. Next fight was Kendall Holt versus Danny Garcia. Another great fight. Kendall Holt almost gets knocked out several times in the fight. He loses his legs and gets hit with a big shot. Danny Garcia ends up winning the fight. Third fight between potentially Fight of the Year candidate between Jorge Linares and Antonio DeMarco. Great fight. Fight of the Year written all over it. That was a classic example of boxing skill and speed is not enough to win. You can see the drive in DeMarco. He had, as far as boxing skill goes, if you compare him to Jorge Linares, I mean, you can see that they were really mismatched. If that was a 5-round fight or whatever, the DeMarco guy maybe landed 3 or 4 solid punches in 5 rounds. I mean, that's how good Linares was. He was so good that even Emanuel Stewart, he repeatedly said that he's the best boxer he's ever seen. And that's a lot coming from Emanuel Stewart, saying that you're the best fighter he's ever seen. But this fight really reminded me of Cotto versus Margarito 1, where Cotto is the better boxer and he's landing the better punches, but you can see Margarito slowly getting more into the fight and coming on to the other dude, where the real good fighter, in this case Linares, was just hoping for this fight to be over. He just wanted to get out of there. It's pretty significant because he did lose a face. His face was he did lose a fight. His face was a bloody mess. He was just beating the snot out of, like, you can see after the fight was over, he took a knee and blood was just gushing out like a geyser out of every single pore in his face was bleeding. It was crazy. And I say it's significant because this is actually the first fighter that Team Pacquiao, as in Freddie Roach and Alex Ariza, has lost. In attendance in the audience, Eric Morales, Amir Khan, Manny Pacquiao, everyone was there watching Linares, and that was a big loss for him because he had all the skills, all the advantages in the world, and he ended up losing it. So mad props to DeMarco for showing his heart. You can literally see the determined state of both of those fighters. Like DeMarco, after like the 6th or 7th round, he just wanted the fight to be over, whereas DeMarco, he was just waking up. Bells rung in his head, and he was going to go give it to him. And it was a good stoppage by the referee because Linares, he never went down, but he was getting killed, like literally killed in there. So big loss for Linares. He lost in front of his whole team, even Manny Pacquiao, all that stuff. So, but I'm pretty sure he'll learn from it, and his career will be fine. I still think he's one of potentially the best fighters in the business right now. He just needs to work on his power a little bit. Maybe he needs to come up in weight, and then, just a little more heart. He needs to stand his ground a little more. He was backing up too much. Now for our main event between Chad Dawson and Bernard Hopkins. I was expecting a really great fight in this one. Chad Dawson, he's not the shit-talking type. He's not the one that'll crazy talk, but you can see Bernard Hopkins was trying to get into Chad Dawson's head before the fight even started, talking all this shit about, I'm old, I'm this and that, but I'm still going to beat you. In the weigh-in, he was all up in his grill. Pretty exciting weigh-in if you didn't watch it. And then the first round, nothing really happened, but Chad Dawson, surprisingly, was one walking Bernard Hopkins down. And you can just tell Chad Dawson was a huge presence in the ring. Like Bernard Hopkins, he was like a rag doll compared to Chad Dawson. Chad Dawson, you can tell he could just out-muscle Bernard Hopkins anytime he wants. He's just tossing him around. And then the first round, Bernard Hopkins, on 2 occasions, I saw that he tried to land a dirty headbutt. He would come in basically arms flailing, and then come in following his like pity pat punches on the way in. He would try to come in with a lunging headbutt, and Bernard Hopkins instigated the dirty tactics, and it's Bernard. He does that every time. In the second round, I gave the first round to Chad Dawson just because he was more clean. Bernard Hopkins was too pity-patty, and he just didn't look good. The second round, Bernard Hopkins, towards the middle of the second round, Bernard Hopkins tries to land a right straight, right cross, and Chad Dawson ducks it, and ducking it low, Bernard Hopkins found himself like on top of Chad Dawson, and Chad Dawson basically just threw an elbow just to get Bernard off of him, and Bernard Hopkins goes flying up in the air, lands on his elbow. I thought he landed on his wrist and then rolled onto his elbow, but that's just me. Maybe I didn't see what you guys or what Bernard was seeing. But he basically he's just on the floor, typical Bernard Hopkins, crying, trying to get Chad Dawson disqualified or trying to get a point deducted instead of just fighting like a man and just this is what Bernard does. And I'm glad they gave Chad Dawson the TKO win, because Bernard has done this way too much in his career to just get away with it or have the referee take a point off of Chad Dawson. Chad Dawson did nothing wrong. All he did was push him off, and Bernard put himself in that situation in the first place. And he's on the floor crying, and he may have been telling the truth this time about how his shoulder was popped out, his shoulder was dislocated, but I don't believe it, because even after the fight, Max Kellerman was like, well, you've been known to, basically act in a couple occasions, such as like Roy Jones. If you haven't seen the second fight between him and Roy Jones, I don't recommend watching it, but just see it just to see Bernard's shenanigans. He did that with Joe Calzaghe, where he just cries and tries to get the other guy disqualified. This is a boxing match, Bernard. Just fight him, okay? You don't have to try to beat him with bullshit antics. But anyway, Max Kellerman was like, oh, can we see your shoulder? And then he basically takes his robe off, and then you can see him just do this. Like, you can see he's doing this. Like, you can see his muscles, like, flexing. And then, he's like, oh, yeah, see the difference between this shoulder is here, this shoulder is dislocated. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. You're full of shit. He wanted out of that fight. Either way, I would have had Chad Dawson beating the snot out of Bernard Hopkins. You can see that he was just, but Chad Dawson was just way too big, way too young. He's not Jean Pascal, where he's just going to be coming in with offense and no defense and whatnot. So good call by the referee. I hope they don't overturn it. If Bernard wants it, he can get a rematch. I think a rematch would sell a lot more than this one did, because Chad Dawson, you can see him. He went out to the corner, and I thought a fight was going to break out because he was calling Bernard Hopkins a bitch, all that stuff. Now they truly have bad blood, so the rematch I think would be great. Even though I'd still have Chad Dawson beating him by a mismatch, but I'd like to see it regardless. I don't feel like I got robbed of the pay-per-view, because the 3 fights before that, the undercard was so good that I didn't mind the main event being so bad. I kind of expected like a bad fight, because stylistically I didn't think they would make a good fight. But yeah, that's it. The undercard was great. A lot of these fights are already on YouTube, so I recommend you guys watch them. They're great fights. Linares and DeMarco, fight of the year for sure. Well, This is Teruga bringing you the latest on the boxing news. Peace.